Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner here today. We have a really, really extraordinary guest here today. And I'm really, really looking forward to this interview with Ian Two Guns Cannon. Ian, welcome to Coach's Corner. We appreciate you coming down here today. Really an extraordinary story of what you're doing and up there. Why don't you give everybody a little background of yourself and what your program is right now? And
so first and foremost, I have cerebral palsy. I'm wheelchair bound, but strangely enough, I'm also a boxer. I've been a boxer now for 15 years, developed a conditioning and wheelchair boxing program for those across the mobility impaired spectrum. And we've also got a little bit of a competition element as well. And we just want to help the sport grow and change the mentality from that sort of thug mentality that people think of when they see boxing to a rehab mentality, which you and I have discussed at length,
right.
off air.
I mean, talking to you prior to this, you've been around boxing, and we're going to kind of get into how you gravitated towards boxing, but you've been around a lot of the big name people, and what I gather in talking to you, people don't realize you're a boxing fanatic, not only as a person who wants to train, a guy who loves the sport and is looking to be involved in the sport at a level and bring some credibility to it. And talking to you, the game, the people out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's so how did you, obviously with your situation, how did it gravitate to boxing to you? Why was it boxing? Sorry. Why did you pick boxing, and what made you gravitate towards that?
I don't say I picked boxing. I say boxing picked me. The movie Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe, I saw it at 12, and I begged my mother at the time to let me go to the gym. She didn't think I was ready. 2 years of begging and one rough day at school, I followed some friends into a local LA boxing franchise and met Chris Lombardi, Peter Cordona, John Scully. The list goes on.
Right.
All local guys. And I would go, as much as I could. And then my parents divorced. I moved in with my dad. My grandfather was a physician, so my dad recognized the biomechanical benefits of moving. I didn't want to do physical therapy. I wanted to do boxing. And then it became our family's life. It became what we did because it got me off all of my meds. It prevented severe spinal surgery for 18 years and counting. All of those things that people don't look at boxing as a rehabilitation tool, but look at what boxing does with Parkinson's work.
Right.
Those are the things that that nobody really talks about. So then we decided to take it. If it worked well for me, it's got to work well for other people. So we worked with the Lions Den, which is no longer in business, and broadcast what we did, and we ended up on the news and had 6 or 7 people come in across the disability spectrum. We had 2 big successes. One of our clients was a dual stroke victim. He came to us in a chair. He left walking. And then we had a woman who was a C5 paraplegic. She came to us and began to get improved bladder control and sensation in her abs. And this is what boxing does.
Yeah. I mean, at any level, as well as I do, boxing is going to challenge you. It's going to challenge you, and mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I like the comment, boxing picked me, because I think, you want to know something? You're right. For the people that are really in the game, it picks us. We don't pick it. It picks us. For you, maybe in the beginning for guys, they want to try it out and they don't last. But the real people in the game, it picks us. So you created this program, and obviously, I know the names you're talking about. Shout out to Scully and everybody else. I don't want to miss anybody there. You're dealing with guys at a high level, but you're creating this program and you're creating the training. What was, when you first went in and you started training, what was what were you thinking about and your expectation at that point?
I just wanted to be the best that I could be, and then it morphed into, because you got to understand, being cognitive with a disability but yet having a physical disability, you're somewhat ostracized because people don't know how to take you. They don't know how to perceive you.
Right. At first it's let's see, we walk with kind of kid gloves. Excuse me. You know what I mean? And obviously, whether you have a disability or not, as coaches, it takes time to build a bond with the people we're working with.
Right. And, then these people treated me like I was normal, like I was one of them from day one. There was no kid gloves approach.
Right.
So being a young teen, we all remember being a teenager and wanting to fit in, right?
Exactly.
Think about, in my situation, that's amplified. So you're looking at someone who, in the minds of the rest of the world, is broken, who's now doing one of the most physically difficult and mentally demanding activities that anybody can do, and is seeing his body change and his function improve. The level of empowerment that I felt with that just from day one. The minute I hit the bag the first time, it was like the light bulb went on and somebody gave me the house keys to my dream house.
Right.
That is exactly what happened. And then it became addicting, and it was a drug, socially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Yeah, that's what boxing does. Look, boxing is the love-hate relationship. I talk about this all the time. Coaches, managers, promoters, fighters, we all go through this. People who are training, there are days that you want to just say, this is crazy, I'm doing something else. And then something good in boxing happens again and you're back at it. So going in, right, other than, watching Cinderella Man, knowing about boxing as a sport, what was your expectation of yourself? Now you're in it, and the anxiety's going through everybody's mind. When we first start training, we walk into that gym, we're around fighters, we got to hit the bag, we got to do pads, we got to, what is yours? Because you're dealing with a whole nother situation, and how did you, fight through that, and what was your expectation for yourself?
So I have a motto that I use when I talk about this, and it's fight to get to zero. Everybody is born at zero. And then when you have a disability, you're born at -2 or 3, right?
Okay.
So my fight was to get to zero and be the best person that I could be, and be as physically active and as quote-unquote normal as I could be in terms of my physical function, because it would keep me off the OR. It would keep me off the scripts.
Right.
And I could just live. I could be like everybody else and push my body in ways that nobody ever thought I could. And that, to me, was the expectation. If I could just defy the doctor's expectations from day one, like I did when they thought that I wasn't going to talk, wasn't going to be cognitive, that's been my mode since I was born, since before I even...
So you had that fighter already instilled in you before you hit the gym. You have that mentality, a fighter mentality. No, you don't think I could do it? No, fuck you, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. And I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. That's exactly how I approach training and how I approach the combat sports community, whether it's boxing or MMA, whatever it may be.
Right. So now you're training in there. You weren't doing anything else other than that, right? It was boxing that kind of was your activity at that, or was it something else before that?
It was straight boxing. It was boxing and Boy Scouts in the early days, and then sports after that. And then it became my passion and my father's passion, and we would travel to tournaments and travel to different gyms. And anytime I was in a new state or a new city, I would look up a trainer, whether it be Peter Welch or Freddie Roach, and hit them up and tell them my story and say, hey, can I come down and train and learn from you?
Right.
And that was how the program grew.
What was your first training like?
God.
Now you're there, right? You get into the gym, and I know Scully, and he's a great trainer, and he knows how to work with people. How is that training right there?
Well, my first training was with Pito Cordona. And
Okay.
Pito, God bless him, is not the most politically correct dude that ever was. And he just pushed me. He just said, "You're disabled. I don't care. I'm going to beat your ass, bro." And instantly I felt like I was home because I was accepted because nobody babied me.
Right.
And it was just jab, 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 work the left, retrain the brain so that the left arm functioned better and I had full extension. And I was tired, but I felt more accomplished then than I ever did doing anything else.
Right. So now you want to run back into the gym after that. Obviously. It's like you leave and, you're physically spent, and now you got the bug.
Oh, I didn't want to go home.
So at this point, how many times are you training after this? Are you training every day, every other day?
Once a week then, and then when my parents divorced, it became 5 nights a week. 5 to 6 nights a week we were in the gym.
You were in the gym.
For 2 to 3 hours a day. Then we were at tournaments, absorbing, learning, looking at rules, so we could build our conditioning program and then our competitive side of the program and move forward. Then we were bouncing to different gyms with people we met at tournaments, just like any able-bodied fighter would.
Right, you're building relationships within our network, and the boxing community, as big as it may seem, is a small community of really. There's a lot of good people out there that do a lot of good things that you don't hear about because they're not putting it out there. They're just doing it for the love of the game. And I know what you're saying there as far as that.
Absolutely. And I got to say that the community as a whole was the most disability-accepting community that I had ever been a part of. I mean, these guys would invite me into their homes, and if there were steps, they would just pick me up and pop me up and let's do it. I would, hang out with their kids, go out with their daughters, etc. And it was just, I was one of the guys, chair or no chair.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And look, you treat a fighter that way no matter what because everybody's overcoming something, even fighters, look, they have their insecurities and their things that they have to overcome. As coaches, we have to coach the personality. We have to coach that person and find a way. You're there to be treated as a fighter.
Absolutely.
And not any less. And you know what? It's something really, really good to see. So you're training now as a young man, in your teens and as you're getting old. When did the bug to compete hit you?
15, and then I started competing at 17. And it was, I wanted to be like my friends. I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to push myself. I wanted to see if I could really respond neurologically quickly enough to slip and move and test myself in that way. So we put a team together to do it, and that team included some really big names. Shout out to Steve Smoger, may he rest in peace. He's one of the best referees to ever do it.
Great referee.
He developed our rules competitively.
How did you get to Steve? Tell me how that transpired, because now you're putting it all together, and you get to Steve, and how did that transpire?
Every fighter needs great managers in their career, whether they're self-managed or not. In the beginning, they need that, and thankfully, I met people like Jackie Catlin and Al Valente, who are really big names and were inspired by my story. And I said, "Can you help me do this?" And they both agreed. So when I met Al, he said, "If you want to do this, we need to talk to Steve because he is a safeties and rules nut." And Steve and I sat down. He watched me work out, and he said, "You know what? You're safe. You can do this." We built in a medical protocol as well with great ringside physicians here in Connecticut, Dr. Michael Schwartz, who's head of American Ringside Physicians, and Dr. Lucian Perillo. And they followed me as a patient in their practice to track my progress to make sure that I would be doing this safely.
Right. So you created, give us the exact name of the organization that you created.
Roll with the Punches was our conditioning program.
Okay.
And then the competition side was just wheelchair boxing through organizations such as the IBA. Because our goal with that was to be inclusive. We didn't want to have the wheelchair basketball model where it's separate but equal. we wanted to show the world what the disabled community could do as a whole. So we wanted to have you be a disabled event on an able-bodied card.
Right.
And we worked with great promoters to make that happen, like Rich Cappiello, who...
Yep, shout out to the Cappiello brothers up there in Boston.
Yeah.
Been around for a while.
I talk to them every day. I talk to Richie still. I just talked to him today. He sends his best, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
So
you created this program. You and Steve are sitting down right from scratch. And, I know Steve from watching him and being around events, great referee, stickler for the rules and everything else and safety. What's his reaction when you bring this to him?
His reaction is, great. You have the heart. Let's do it. He just wanted to make sure that I was physically capable. And when I gave him the medical clearance, he said, I'm down. And that was the reaction of 95% of the fight community. And the 5% that were detractors, they may not agree with what I do and they may think of it as a risk or whatever it may be. That's their choice. But let the results of myself and the people that I trained speak for themselves.
Listen, anything when it comes to a boxing event, whether it's USA Boxing, a professional event, a high-level amateur national event, safety is going to be out there, right? So the haters out there that don't know anything about this don't realize that if it's unsafe, you're not going to fight.
Correct.
At any level. Disabled, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. You're not fighting. You know what I mean? So nobody's going to sign off on that. For a high-level referee who's been involved in boxing and the organization for a long time to say, let's do it, gives you great credibility. And he must have felt at that point that there's no danger here. It's something that we need to bring to fruition.
Right, and I trained with other coaches who happen to be great referees like Johnny Callis. So
shout out to Johnny, Cobra Boxing.
They would communicate with each other. And it just happened to be this great convergence of, people at the right time. Right people, right time.
But also you were building, so prior to getting to Steve, like you just said, you were around other trainers involved in the sport at a high level. So there is that little bit of relationship that they could say, hey, well, what do you know about this guy, Ian? Yeah, man, he's all in. He can train. He's this, he's that. You're building your credibility right off the rip with these people.
Yes.
They see you in the trenches. They see you training. They see your passion of what you want to achieve. So, that's helping you, I would have to say also.
And I think you're right. And I'm going to ask you this as a coach. I sent you my training videos and my fight videos. What did you think fundamentally or from?
Fundamentally, you can punch. So, from your beginnings and, your base of learning boxing, you fundamentally can punch. Your stamina looks well. I'd love to hold pads for you to see what kind of pop there is on that punch, to be honest with you. It's tough to see. I mean, I could hear it in the video. I mean, you're not, anything to sleep on, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what you're doing in the ring. You know what we would say, your ring IQ is very high.
I appreciate the compliment, and thank you, Coach. But that's the thing. If you're going to do this, if you're going to decide that boxing is your life, no matter your ability level, it's got to be your life. You've got to study tape. You've got to go to events. You've got to meet with different coaches. One of the biggest things that I used to do, with guys like Scully is after sparring, I would sit and I would listen to the stories. Anytime I was at a Ring 8 event in New York, because I'm a Ring 8 member and I advocate for anybody to join that organization.
Awesome.
I would sit there with any of the old-timers, whether they be Bob Duffy or Bobby Bartell or Aaron Barkley, and ask them questions about training or about doing deals with this promoter or this manager so that I could learn and absorb. And it's got to be a constant education. Whether if you just want to train and burn calories and work out and do your thing, great, more power to you. But if you want to compete, it needs to be almost a religious devotion in order to do it well. And doing it well doesn't mean necessarily winning a title. It just means getting the best out of it for you.
Yeah, I agree. We look at fighters at all levels, like you just said. There are people who come into the gym, they just want to train and be around a boxing gym, and be doing their exercise and learn. Then there are people who want to come in and they want to take it to the next level or have an end result. Then obviously you have your amateurs and your pros. The boxing bug is contagious. And look, you're right. We're learning every day. As a coach, I'm around different people. I'm like you. I'm looking, I'm talking, I'm asking questions. I'm observing what other people do to, train their fighters or work with their fighters and say, oh, that might be something I want to work with or do or incorporate in my training. But I think if we stop learning in this sport, it's not going to evolve anymore. And there's a lot of good people out there training. There's a lot of good fighters out there that people don't even know who they are, that maybe don't get the recognition of the top 10 or champion fighters, but they're out there every day doing their work when no one is looking. That's one thing about boxing is everybody sees the fight. Pay-per-view, DAZN, we see the fight. Nobody sees what this, and I've talked about this on other episodes with people, nobody sees the work that you're putting in prior to the fight, if there's not a fight, what you're doing. You're not just sitting around waiting for the fight to happen. You're working at your craft every day. And that goes for coaches too, because, we're in between sometimes having guys fight, but that doesn't mean we're not going to go to the gym, or we're not working with people, or we're not looking at tape, or we're not figuring out, hey, what do we need to work on with our fighters? What do we need, or what do I need to do to be better for you? Because I can't coach you and like I coach another fighter, or coach another fighter like I coach you. You guys have different personalities, different strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. And I think the key is, for anybody, is finding the self-motivation. Because one of the things that I do now in my semi-retirement, we'll just put it that way, because if the right deal comes along, I won't instantly hop back in there and do what I need to do.
Right.
Is motivation. And I think that is one of the biggest things that disability combat sports can teach, is the ability to motivate and the ability to, I don't want to use the term inspire because I don't look at myself as an inspiration. I'm not that. I'm just a regular guy. But the ability to provide a unique perspective. And I think that that's the key for any coach, because tough love works for me, but there are plenty of people in the gym that it doesn't work on.
No. I talked about this on a previous episode also. We coach personalities. We coach personalities. Like, look, like you just said, tough love works on some people. Some people crawl into a shell when you give them tough love. It doesn't change their ability, but you have to coach their personality. You have to find their trigger of, how can I make you click? How can I make you better? When can I push you? And when can I have to hug you? So I use the term, sometimes you got to hug them and sometimes you got to kick them in the ass. Okay? You have to know that balance.
Right. And one of the great things that I learned working corners from the great Tommy Connors, fastest knockout in the Boston Garden, shout out to you, TC, I love you, was never scream in a corner unless a fighter needs it. So any corner that I worked on, if you're screaming, I'm tuning out. Unless you need to motivate me, talk to me, level with me so that I can stay calm.
I agree.
And think.
I agree. And you know what? I learned that from, a lot of great trainers that I had the privilege of being around or working with. And I'm not going to name everybody because there's just so many people that have helped me be a better coach. You have to be calm in that corner. When that fighter comes back, that controlled chaos, that's what I believe. You have to be calm. That fighter's looking up to you for guidance. He's looking for, especially if a fight's turning. You know what I mean? And I talked about this on a previous episode also. If you looked at the Katie Taylor fight, the first fight with Serrano, she had a rough time in the first couple of rounds. And shout out again to Coach Ross, who's a Connecticut guy, and Katie trains in Connecticut. In that, I believe it was the 5th or 6th round, he calmly gave her, the place is going crazy. Serrano looks like she's taking control of the fight. It's going with the announcers, the people. He sat in that corner and calmly gave her instruction, and she came out, and that fight turned. And I thought, wow. He just held his composure and stuck to whatever their plan was at that time, and she came out and obviously won that fight. But I attest a lot of what you're saying is, you got to be calm.
You do. And I mean, I've been in the corner on both sides for, and I work corners for able-bodied fighters as well, young amateurs. And one of the things that I always say when doing that is don't flip. Because if you're calm, they're calm. Yeah. They can process and move forward. But boxing is a thinking man's sport. It's not a tough man's sport, as I've said a million times.
No, we all, you know what? And we talk about this all the time. It's like, look, it is a thinking man. There is a strategy. There is a plan. When we take fights, whether it's an amateur, a pro, a white, whatever it is, whoever's getting in that ring to fight, there's a plan. Okay, you come into the gym, we start day one. This is what we're doing. The plan is put into effect. Your weight, your height, who we're fighting, what we're going to do, all the training's broken down, and we're looking at our opponent to see what they do, strengths, weaknesses, and what we have to work on, strengths, weaknesses. So you know what? When I work fights, I keep the old notebooks, and I have a notebook for each fighter, for each fight that they fight, from the day you start camp till up to the fight. And I write my notes every night. I don't use a computer. I don't use my iPhone. And that's how we track stuff. I mean, obviously today, watching tape is so much easier because we can watch it on our phones, our iPads, whatever. We can sit anywhere and pull up tape of a fight. And there's so much stuff on the internet where years ago you couldn't get tape unless somebody sent it to you.
Right.
So using those tools, yes, there is a strategy to what we do.
I mean, going back to my amateur days, we would film my workouts even if I was just shadow boxing in the mirror and have me watch that. And this was in the early days of the iPhone, but that's what we did, and that's what we still do. Because I think that form and self-evaluation are key to any fighter's success.
Well, you got to see that, it is a great tool, and we utilize it also, in sparring sessions with some fighters getting ready to fight. There is no video. Nobody wants it because it can get leaked out.
Oh.
And we're not that type, but you know what? I get it. But we try to video our fighters so we can show, hey, this is what you're doing. Because sometimes you feel it, but if you see it and you say, oh, now I see what you're talking about. Or, yes, you're right, I'm dropping my left hand. Or, you know what, my feet aren't in position when I punch. But all these tools today with every sport is, just making us better coaches with the athletes.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the big key for any young fighter is self-evaluation. I think that setting goals, evaluating yourself, evaluating your performance, not beating yourself up. There's a big difference between those two things. But evaluating those performance, setting goals, understanding your progress, understanding your individual goals, and understanding your micro goals too. Because a world champion is a great goal, but let's break it down and look at it one fight and one session at a time, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And
so also, like, you're working with fighters, people see you, and you say, hey, I'm not looking to be an inspiration to anybody. But obviously you are, because you have to look at it things like this, right? Disability or not, okay? You're there doing it in the trenches. You have credibility because, like anybody else, we all have stuff to overcome every day. There are days that I'm sure you probably don't want to train. I'm sure there are days you're tired or mentally, physically exhausted, and you're going to say, like anybody else, fuck it, I'm not going to the gym today, or I don't feel it. We got to overcome this stuff. Now, when you're working with a fighter, right, you're bringing a lot to the table because you say, hey, I don't want to hear you're tired. because I'm here doing what I got to do. I'm here overcoming what I got to overcome. What's that reaction, and what's the reactions of fighters and people that you've worked with when you are coaching or speaking to them?
Well, I don't usually say that because,
Right.
like I said, in my mind, I'm a regular guy. I let the visual speak for itself.
Right.
Because I don't need to hit you over the head with it. But there are days I don't want to do it, or there are days that my symptoms flare up and I'm not really feeling it that day. And fighters or people will see it. And if they ease up on me, I'll be like, no. It's a regular day, dude.
I'm not looking for them to ease up on you. I'm looking at where the point is. Someone's going to take what you're doing and be inspired by it.
Well, if to me that's a privilege. It's not a guarantee, it's a privilege.
Right.
And if I inspire people to get healthy, be active, and do what they need to do by living the life that I live and living the sport that I love, because I live it.
Yes.
I don't just do it, I live it. It's great. And when I have to motivate somebody and get tough with them, I just say, look, there are extra moving pieces for me to be here. And if you've been around me, whether it's getting driven or the extra process of me getting up in the morning, which is different than you getting up in the morning, then I'm taking that valuable time not only from me, but from others who helped me do that to be here. Mm-hmm. And you're disrespecting them and you're disrespecting me. So let's reevaluate where we're at and let's reevaluate where we want to be. And that's just the way. And depending on the response is how we move forward. And that's just that.
Gotcha. So now you're competing, you're meeting. Obviously you met with Steve, and you're setting this into, an organization. You want to take this a little further on the competition level. Now, you've had a promotional event in New Hampshire. Is that correct?
We were scheduled to promote in New Hampshire. We had some promoter issues because finding a promoter that was willing to sign me and work with me as if they would anybody else.
Right.
No matter who I had in the corner, no matter the medical clearance that I had, and finding a venue that was appropriate was a challenge. New Hampshire, thanks to the great Bobby Stevens, the wonderful commissioner of that state, was very, very open. And Al was a phenomenal manager. Finding the right opponent, not only because of disability, but because of my size. I'm a smaller guy. I fought at flyweight. I was 103, and that was pushing it.
Right.
So finding a disabled guy who was physically fit enough, but that size to work with was a challenge. And when we did, then there were some promotional issues. But thankfully, I got the approval from New Hampshire. We were able to move forward, and we were able to do what we needed to do. There were some venue changes and some promotional issues. But I use that as a framework as we build the organization forward, working with commissions that are a little more lax, working with referees and trainers to broaden this and help it grow so that hopefully we can be in larger venues one day, whether it's MSG or Mohegan on the street or whatever the heck it may be.
Right. So in this, finding able-bodied opponents that match up for fights here, what is your network there for that? Because matching fights at any level is difficult. You know what I mean? At any level, getting the right opponents and the right fit to make the fight a good fight.
It's other disability sports. You go to athletes, you say, hey, we've got this going on, whether it's wheelchair basketball or wheelchair martial arts or wheelchair sled hockey or wheelchair rugby. I won't even do that. Those guys are off the wall, but they're some of the best athletes I've ever seen. And I'm saying, hey, I've got this going on. Would you like to partake? Then it's a matter of getting them, figuring out where they live, getting them a trainer that's willing to work with them and prepare them appropriately. Then it's getting them the right equipment, because I don't fight in the chair that I live in. We built the chair that we use competitively to have a rotating seat and a spring-loaded back to mimic as much as we could
the movement of a fight.
And if you get hit, the back is spring-loaded, so your brain isn't rattling against the back of your skull. You have some give and some take.
Right.
So those are all the things that we had to do and that we had to build.
So this is all you're building also.
Yes, this is all
your thought process, and this is like, wow. I mean, a lot going into this to make this happen.
Absolutely. And then there's media and proper press attention. Shout out to Bob Trieger and Full Court Press for handling the media of this event beautifully. There is detractors, there are sponsors, there's everything that goes along with every fight that you deal with in your life as a coach, and then you put the disability element on top of it and you mix all that together and there you go.
Right. So you're going to these different organizations. What's the reaction when you're letting them know what you're looking to try to achieve here?
In the disability community, it was great. In the able-bodied community, it was mixed. And it was a matter of presenting, this is the media channel we're approaching. This is the eyeballs we're expected to get. And this is the value added that we bring to your brand. Thankfully, I have a background in marketing in my academic life, so I was able to work out a marketing plan and say, look, this is what we want to do. And I had people to learn from, like Bob, like Al, and so on. And we just made it work. And shout out to Lou DeBella for being the other great promoter that I worked with over the years and seeing something in me and teaching me the promotional side of the business along with Richie.
Nice. So, this is an ongoing process for you. What do you see as far as, will we see an event in Connecticut? Will we see an event at a casino? Will you be on a card, whether an amateur, pro-am, or whatever, along with everybody else, or will you be a separate event?
I don't know that I will, because I'm 31.
Right.
And we all know how fighters age, and we all know, fighters in their 30s, what we've got to evaluate, and I'm settling down and getting married and doing all those things. So, but I do believe we will see an event in New England, whether it will occur at a casino or whether it will occur somewhere else. I'm not going to say, because those commissions have their own views and their own process, but I do believe that we will see that. And I do hope to be a part of it and hope to be sort of a guiding hand and an advisor moving forward.
Will you be on the promotional end?
I would
Seeing this is your baby.
I would love to be on the promotional end. I would love to be on the promotional and managerial end, because I think doing this for so many years and sort of being the UFC of the 90s, but for disabled sports, I think I have a lot to offer, whether it be disabled or able-bodied fighters, because of what I had to do in the advisory side of the business. And that would be a huge goal for me, absolutely.
What about at a higher event for disabled sports? Would it be inclusive there?
Oh, it would be inclusive there. I think that it's key to get this in the Paralympics if we can, just like other sports.
How hard do you think?
I think because there are so many different versions of wheelchair boxing and it's so fractionalized with no mainstream title around it, whether it be the WBC, IBF, IBA, whatever it may be. I think that once we have that, I think it's all going to fall in the line, and there are not going to be different variations of equipment, different variations of rules. I think once we can provide that structure, it's going to happen like that.
Yeah, it's got to be organized, and everything has got to be, from the equipment end of it, from the rules and everything's got to be all in line and be similar. There's got to be a sanctioning body here to set it in place.
And I think that using one of the mainstream able-bodied sanctioning bodies and creating a disability arm to it is essential. Because as I mentioned before, the big element to what we want to do is promote inclusion. Disabled events on able-bodied cards, so that people can see how we are just like everybody else in that ring.
Yeah.
Even if we may move a little differently or whatever it may be,
right?
It's key for us, and that's what it is. Talking about the equipment, we didn't train with USA competition headgear. We used training style headgear from Lonsdale Arrival. We used 10-ounce pro gloves, and rounds were 90-second rounds. Yeah.
Right.
Regular bouts were 4 90-second rounds. Championship rounds were 6. So there you go. And that's how we broke it up to make sure. And at the end of each round, we would start from a different corner. So I may start in the red corner, and then round 2, start in the neutral, round 3. So that way the audience was getting a different view because the wheels were locked and we were knee to knee in a tight position.
Right. Interesting. From the promotional end of this, going forward, your program to work with other gyms and trainers, do you see you as being the main face of this and creating this for trainers? Like if, whatever, a trainer calls you up and says, hey, Ian, I'm running this program over here. I need assistance. Will there be an organization like that similar to what we see in Rocksteady Boxing for Parkinson's?
Absolutely. And that's one of our main goals. Because competition is great, but fitness first and foremost.
Right. But I agree with the fitness end, but it's also the outlet of people getting into the gym, being active, doing something that's going to be beneficial for them. And, you've seen results where you're off of scripts and off of medicines, and you know what it's done for you. How hard is that to get set? And how far away do you think you are on that?
I don't think we're that far away. I think it's a matter of setting up a structure, finding gyms that are willing and physically accessible for people with different mobility needs to work with, and then educating the trainers on disability. Because just because you're a USA certified coach, you may be new. You may not have had exposure to neuromotor issues. And so I think it's a little bit of an educational process and finding facilities that are workable. The great thing is that every gym that I've walked into, just by happenstance, happened to be an accessible community. Gleason's, you've got to go up and down stairs, and I'm not bad-mouthing Gleason's. I'm just saying that's what they have. So you've got to...
Well, that's the old one.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That is the new one.
That's the old one.
The new one's accessible now.
Yeah, the new one's a newer building around the corner. The old one, you had to go up those 900 stairs to get up to the top over there. But you're right. You're talking about a lot of different factors. I think today most gyms, maybe not the hardcore ones, are accessible. How was it when you went to Wild Card?
Wild Card, there were stairs. So when I was in LA, I would train at Justin's Fortunes, which was accessible.
Okay.
Wild Card, I went to visit to see Freddie, just give him a hug and catch up,
Right.
And but Justin's another great trainer, and when it came to disability and conditioning, that man was a savage. He would literally pop the back off of the back of my chair and make me run or do road work up Santa Monica Boulevard, which is a huge hill if you've been to LA, and he would just make me work. And he would say, if you fall out the back, you fall out the back. This is going to teach you to be the best that you can be, and that was a great approach.
Now, when you were working with trainers, did you let them design the program, or did you have input in the training with you?
I always had input because they would say, I don't know what this is. We've never seen this before.
Right.
So what do you do? And I would always have input. Obviously, I'm not going to be the guy who runs his own camp, right? I'm not.
No, I get it. I understand what you're saying about that, but, I just want to see if, I look for fighters to have input, and you have to see what a fit is, like we talked about before. Walk me through your training.
So it's
You come into the gym, tell us what your training's like.
4 rounds of shadow boxing focusing on extension, on speed, so that we have full extension in all the extremities, moving nice and slow. Then it's, 6 rounds on the bag. Then it's burnout rounds, 5-minute, 30-second rest. Then it's pad work. Then it's conditioning. Pull-ups on the Smith press. ab slams with the medicine ball. Then it's get on the mat and do abdominals and lower body stuff for those of us that have that function.
Right.
It's all of those things to make sure that we are keeping the body, from a systems point of view, all systems firing the way they need to. And when you're in a chair, it's all about extension and being able to move your body weight. So that way you can transfer effectively, get in and out of the ring effectively, and do all that kind of stuff.
Right. So obviously, the training is not going to be the same for every individual.
No.
Because of certain limitations. Your limitations might be this, that individual's might be that. So you have to adapt the training.
Right. And there are certain coaches that are unable to do that. And you've got to find the right mindset. And that's why I have such a huge respect for guys like Scully, because in the early days, Scully was my matchmaker.
Right.
So, I mean...
Yeah, but John is an all-in boxing guy. He lives and eats it. He's doing great things out there with some of the retired boxers. Obviously as a coach, he's working with Beaterbev, and he works with a lot of amateurs. I know he works with, up at Koba with Johnny Callis. Shout out to all those guys. John is in the game. He is all in the game at every level.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he gave me my nickname. I wouldn't be Two Guns if it wasn't for him. That's... Training is unique, and same with Peter Welch up in Southie. It's
Welch Boxing. Shout out to them guys.
It's really unique, and we just created something, pushed the envelope, and had a crazy idea and ran with it. That's just how it went.
So, when you reached out to me and you sent me your information, and right away I looked at your tape. You've been on local news. Had some publicity throughout the state with this, has picked up your story. I mean, it was a no-brainer to have you here. Obviously, two parts, boxing and your story with it, but you're a boxing guy. You're in this game, and you know what it's like, the love, the hate, the blood, sweat, and tears to be in this game and traveling and training and being around it. What is next for you? And what is, you seem to be a very humble guy. But do you think putting your story out there more and your brand is going to help this grow?
I do, and I think of that as a privilege, as I say. But I think that putting the story out there, broadcasting what we do as an organization, broadcasting what I've been through is the next part, because I just want to motivate. I just want to motivate and help the sport that we love grow and change the public perception of what boxing is. That's all I want to do. Whether that comes as a promoter, a manager, a fitness face, a content creator, whatever it may be, I'm open to it.
Right. Now, are you training anyone now?
I am not training anyone now because COVID, as we all know, just demolished the boxing game, and finding a accessible facility where I live in the southeastern part of the state has been a bit of a challenge, and finding the talent pool is hard because of the dedication that I expect, whether you have a disability or not. I expect you to be there, and I expect you to be ready to work. So I'm not training anybody now. I'm advising a few fighters in the able-bodied realm onto what I think should happen. I'm not managing by any means, but I'm always the voice of counsel and the voice of reason. Right.
I mean, obviously, you are going to have to be the spokesman for this.
Yes.
Because you've created you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's here. You ran with an idea, but you created a system and a base here well beyond what anybody's thinking about here. I mean, right down to the equipment, the chair, the training, and everything else. So, I mean, to get people interested in this, and not only just boxing, it's hard to get people interested in boxing. I think these days also just regularly, there are some challenges. What's the reaction as you talking to groups, speaking about your program and what you want to achieve?
The reaction is 95% positive, and I think that's a pretty good takeaway for the professionals we've been able to build with. And I think that the more we grow, the more we do, it's only going to get better and it's only going to get bigger. And the more of a sort of guiding hand that I can have in the process to make sure that stays pure and stays on target, I'm happy to do it.
Right.
But I want it to grow past me one day. I want to be able to turn on the Paralympics and see what I've done. I want to be able to go in different gyms, just cruising around one day and see a mixed ability class and just watching them kill it. That's what I want.
I think in today's day and age, Paralympics definitely would be a great addition to what's going on there. I think the sport alone is, would be welcome there. I think it's just how you're going to get there, how you're going to get to that spot right now. And as far as any funding or anything, this is just at the beginning stages for you.
Yes, it's just at the beginning stages. We're setting up an entity. We're moving forward because we want to see it grow. Because the key is, and this applies to combat sports as a whole, it's a business, right? And it needs to be run like a business. Whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, it just does. And creating an entity where we can become profitable so we can grow is key. And I have a marketing and finance background, and my family has a finance background as well. So we were able to build in the proper framework to make this work. And the sky's the limit for Roll with the Punches. I really think it is.
Yeah, because look, your equipment and everything else is a little different than everybody right now. You have to make adjustments. You have to make sure everybody's on the same page as far as the way you're competing and everything else. It's just not ordering a bunch of gloves and headgear from Everlast and saying, hey, here we go. And, there is some – who do you see besides yourself that you would want to work with to make this grow?
I think, there are a whole bunch of disability sports organizations and disability fitness organizations, too many to name,
right,
that I would love to work with. On the combat sports side, I'd love to work with some of the big alphabets more and helping them grow what they do. And I would love to work with UFC and their brand as well to broaden what we do. Basically, anyone who's interested in working with me, as long as we have a similar vision and it's not exploitive, I'm open to it.
Awesome. You working in the gyms up there, is it only you when you're training at times? Were you getting other individuals locally to come in and say, hey, Ian, I want to be a part of what you're doing. I want to train. Are people reaching out to you for help and assistance here?
Thank God for YouTube and thank God for the boxing press, because when you Google wheelchair boxing, my name is one of the big ones that pops up, and I don't mean that in a conceited way, but when somebody sees it, my social media gets hit up, and we work with people, well, no matter what part of the country they're in or what part of the globe they're in, because as you said, the boxing community is small, so it's just a matter of connecting people and
right,
and building. And shout out to my friends in New York like John Duddy, who's doing some great Parkinson's work. I've referred people to John. And, it's all about picking up that phone and hammering the keyboard to get people the help that they need.
Have you set up any programs anywhere in gyms across the country right now or consulted on that?
Consulted, yes. Set up, no. Because I want to make sure, due to my own health, that I'm in a position to be there every day and in a position advise and hop down there if I need to
Right.
and do more than just Zoom. I want to be able to get a hands-on approach to what goes on.
Good. Let's pop a couple questions off at you here. We're gonna tell me what's your boxing style. Who do you take your style from, and who inspired you as a fighter? Say, hey, I want to fight a little bit like that and put my twist on it.
You know, I'm gonna go old school. So, you know, us young cats may not know what goes on, but I studied a lot of ESPN Classic. So, output of Barry McGuigan, defensive style of Livingston Bramble, and sort of the peekaboo style of Winky Wright or Kelly Pavlik.
Yeah, those are. I mean, that's definitely a lot of people. You know, Barry McGuigan, great fighter. Livingston Bramble. You know, I was a Ray Mancini fan, still am. I do have a little connection to him. And, you know, Bramble kind of broke my heart when he beat Ray. So, but it was a great fighter. And actually, he is training now. Yeah. And, you know, Winky Wright, wow. I mean, probably one of the best defensive fighters we've ever saw out there. And Kelly Pavlik was just some great fights with Jermaine Taylor.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was just, and, you know, I know he's doing some training out in Youngstown, Ohio right now. And, you know, just those are some big names right there. That's pretty impressive right there. Coaching style. Who do you as a coach? Who do you take bits and pieces and put your spin on?
I mean, I'm a New England guy, born and bred and raised, and I think it's Mickey Ward, Tommy Connors, Dickie Eklund, Scully, and Callis. I think those are the guys that shaped me as coaches because they motivated me. So,
right. So you were actually with them, so you were able to experience their style and what they were doing as coaches.
Oh, yeah. And I think that Freddie as well, because Freddie and I would have hours-long conversations on the phone about technique and disability and symptoms and all these other things. So, you know, I learned from the best, and I'm just blessed with the people that I got to associate with. But when you talk about style, you got to think fighting in a chair. You're in a box basically. You're fighting in a phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
So the only style that really works is peekaboo style because if you can't turn your body like you would for the shoulder roll,
you got to protect it.
You got to protect it. So defensive envelope, elbows on thighs, hands high.
Right.
Then you're basically mimicking a output style of McGuigan with that defensive approach of Winky. And you're there.
What's your best punch?
Best punch would either be the right hook or the straight right hand. And because of the fact that I didn't have much of a jab, still don't, it was a throwaway punch for me. So when
you were setting up your right hand.
You know, just give him the flap doodle with the left, and hopefully he falls for it, slips into it, and pop, it's there. And output is the key. The best defense is volume.
You know what? We look at fights today, right? You're a fight guy, and you know we have CompuBox. We have all the analytics of fights right now. We can count punches. We can count this, that, the other thing. And if you look at fights, you're right. Output is winning fights. I think you know if you're controlling the fight and you're throwing more punches and you're being accurate and connecting the punches, you're obviously going to be ahead and win on the fight.
Right, because if you look at when I was competing, you've got 90 seconds. So you've got 30 seconds on, 30 seconds to take a rest, and 30 seconds to close. Same way as Sugar Ray Leonard did in the 80s and 70s and 80s. Steal the round. Exactly. And the way to do that is with clean, effective volume.
Right. You got to be accurate. You got to make sure your punches are coming out and touching there. Favorite fighter?
I'm gonna give you my top three since
we're getting to three.
Since I can't narrow it down. You know, James Braddock because he was my inspiration.
Great movie.
Mickey, of course, having to work with him, but even before then, I was a huge fan. And probably, if you want to go old school New York, I would say either Aaron Davis or Camacho, both of whom are great.
You know, yeah, I mean, great fighters right there, all overcome everything. Aaron, I know Aaron. Aaron's a great trainer at Morris Park Boxing in the Bronx. Shout out to Aaron Superman Davis. You know, obviously Mickey Ward, the late Hector Camacho, all great fighters. James Braddock, the story Cinderella man, humble, hardworking man who, I mean, I love all those stories right there. Just, you know, fighters who endured stuff and, you know, came out and overcame a lot throughout their careers. And, you know, their legacies still live on right now. Yeah, I mean, that's today. What do you think of the fight game today? Because obviously you're an old school guy. You study a lot of old fights. You watch a lot of old fights. Pick a guy today who you would like. Give me a name today that you would say.
Name today I like, even though he's getting up there, is Tiafimo and Loma, because when you look at young fighters today, and I call this the zone and matchroom era, because promoters are buying up dates, there are not as many local shows, there's not as much filtration, right? You're not getting the same level of competition that you would normally, and you're not getting the same level of growth. So,
well, we fall being in New England, right? To just jump in on that with you, you know, money moves the fighter. We fall back into New England back in the day when ESPN was putting on 2 televised events. They were putting on Tuesday night fights and Friday night fights,
right.
If you remember. So that filtration of local fighters, local promoters that we were able to see. You know, if you remember, you know, Mickey Ward was on ESPN so many times. Like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Almost weekly.
Yeah, he was on, you know, so you were able to see him build his career. Now, like you said, we don't get to really see these guys unless it's on a major card, you know, the zone, matchroom, and it's just kind of the way it is right now. So it is a little harder to see some of these up-and-coming fighters.
And I think streaming is going to be the way that that's going to change. I think that once promoters can really understand the streaming platform, and this is one of the things that Two Guns LLC, my old company, focused on. We were going to be the Netflix of sports. That was what our goal was. When we look at how to build a fighter and how to get the eyes and use the social media presence, and one thing that I have to say about Top Rank is they have their fighters go through a social media training course. That's key today. You know, you're.
It is because look, it's an important aspect, and I'm learning the social media stuff now. You know, it is to promote your fighter, to promote a brand, to promote what you're doing. It has to be done a certain way, tastefully, and especially if you're affiliated with a top organization or any organization, you want to represent the brand properly.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be, I think once we see those, we're going to get a lot more club shows, and we're going to get a lot more of that filtration that the sport desperately needs.
Yeah. I mean, and look, there is a lot of great talent in our area and throughout the country right now that, you know, it's not being put out there. I think the stream, once these promoters can figure out a good stream service for themselves, that they can put it out there, we're going to be seeing fighters and, you know, the social media. You know, obviously we got Netflix showing Jake Paul. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on that are, I predicted Netflix doing this a long time ago. Do I agree that Jake Paul is the vehicle to do it with the way those exhibitions are set up? Not particularly. Do I think that he brings a new era of fans to the sport? Sure. Do I agree that he has a great understanding of the sport as a promoter? Yes. But do I think that we're going to see a shift of regular boxing on Netflix? No. I think this is going to be a flash from the pan, and it's got to be done correctly. And frankly, I hope when Roll with the Punches grows, we can be a part of something like that and bringing that to fruition.
Yeah, I think honestly that's what you guys have right now as an organization, as a name. I think it's a great story. I think what you guys are doing is really going to be something I look forward to seeing when it really pops on an event. I think you're It's a great idea. It's awesome. For us as a trainer, I would love to be a part of that and be helpful in any way I can for you guys. It's exciting to see. And part of the excitement is your passion for boxing. That's what we're all passionate about boxing. You, myself, the people that we're around are very passionate.
Oh, absolutely.
And will do for this. But thoughts on Jake Paul as a fighter?
I think he's a great promoter and a good novice amateur. I think that there are defensive mistakes, and I think that he hasn't really been tested, and I think he cherry picks.
Of course. Look, this is a constant question with everybody. People, Jake Paul, what do you think of Jake Paul? He's has the finances to do what he's doing and to be at the level that he's at right now. What I think as a coach and being involved in boxing, he's bringing boxing to people who might not necessarily be a boxing fan.
I agree with that.
He's exposing
100%.
our sport. The hardcore people are going to watch pay-per-view. They're going to know the fighters. Our hardcore fight fan. We're going to watch fighting at 5 o'clock in the morning from England on whatever channel it is, right? He's bringing a new blood to boxing. And I think that's, very, very good to a sport that's had some ups and downs.
Right. I think that we need to take a leaf as a sport out of UFC's book for the way that they marketed and managed and media worked their sport. And call me a Teddy Atlas, and Teddy, I love you. Shout out to you. I think about you all the time. There needs to be more of a cohesive organization, more of a national commission.
I agree with that. Because, look, UFC is UFC. Dana White makes the rules. That's it. You fight for UFC. It's not UFC, UFBC, whatever all. It's one. So if you fight under the UFC brand, you're fighting under their brand. In boxing, we have WBO, WBC, IBF, NAB. We have so many different organizations that set their own rules, and that's fine. But I think, like you saying, there should be one cohesive organization that sets the rules, sets the brand, and you'll see, like you do in other sports, the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, you'll see something great.
Yeah, absolutely will. And then you get into the role of what are promoters, setting up teams in that new organization, etc. Setting up similar they do in Team Combat League now. And building that out. I think that's going to be the direction that boxing is going to need to go, not only to survive, because I would say, we as a sport are surviving, but I want to see us thrive.
Exactly. I agree, because there's a lot of people in boxing that make money, and there are a lot of fighters out there. I say it all the time. You have fighters out there, 20 wins in a tough sport, not making a living. Not making a full-time living. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Think about what all they have to do to get there, and that doesn't provide enough for their family.
How many guys do we know, or girls, who are working in the gym plus working a 9-to-5 job?
All the time. All the time. I got guys working, you know what I mean? All the time. They work a full-time job. They provide their training around their job, money that they're putting in themselves to keep their careers going.
And the other thing that I want to talk about is fighter healthcare and fighter safety for a second, because I think that just like MLB, just like any of the other mainstream sports, there needs to be fighter protection, fighter healthcare, and fighter safety.
I mean, look, we've seen it where fighters who get older, they don't have healthcare insurance. There is no pension. Major League Baseball, football, after you play X amount of years, you're entitled to a pension. Whether you make it to the top level or not, you could be in the minor leagues for, I believe, and I'm not exactly sure, I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years for you to be vested, and you're entitled to a pension. You're entitled to some benefits there. Boxing, you could be in boxing 20, 25 years. You could be an former world champion, and we know all the stories of guys who've been world champions who are, scraping nickels today, or, don't have enough for their health care, or, had injuries in the sport that they're not being taken care of.
And the key with young fighters, if they're going to go pro, is financial literacy and financial management. Teaching them how to do that so that when they get a nest egg, even if they only fight on ESPN for a 20 grand purse, they can take that 20 grand purse, invest it, put it aside,
Right.
provide for their families. Those issues are some of the reasons why boxing has a bad rap and why people think fighters get exploited. And it's our job as coaches and as personalities to advocate for what those things are. And that's one of the things that I do now, no matter the ability level of the fighters that I work with.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. People don't know the behind the scenes of what these fighters go through, how, a lot of them might not know how to manage their money, or they trust other people who are managing their money who are not doing the right thing. But I want to kind of wrap it up here with a couple of things that we do here on Coach's Corners. We shoot you off a couple of quick questions. First question I always have for everybody as we wrap it up, if you were going to be in a foxhole, who are you picking to be in the foxhole with you, Ian?
Definitely either my two personal assistants, Sean or Dana, or my fiance or my dad. Those are my core people. I love them all, and I fight for them every day, and I'm grateful for them.
Awesome. You get to pick 3 dinner guests, dead, alive, whatever, 3 people you want to sit down with. Who are they going to be?
I would say movie producer Jerry Weintraub, Dana White, and poet Frank McCourt. I would say those are my 3.
Great. Well, look, I really, really appreciate you coming on here today. We definitely would love to have you back and keep us posted of what is going on with Roll with the Punches. And, any promotional event that you're doing down the road, we would love to be there to help you. I'd love to have you in the gym one day. To be perfectly honest with you, we can make that happen, or, we can do a little workout, you and I.
Oh, I'd love it.
I know you got some stuff going on, but maybe after that we can find a time to put something together, me and you.
I'd look forward to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Love to get in there, love to get moving, get some pad work in. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell everybody where we could find you as far as social media or anything you want to plug in there right now?
Social media, you can find me at Ian Cannon 4 on TikTok. You can find me at Two Guns Boxing on Instagram and Ian Cannon on Facebook. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for having me be a part of this great show. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Appreciate you, Ian. Just want to shout out to a couple of people. My guy, Ian Bick here, Creative Evolution. I appreciate him so much for what he does here, putting this all together, doing a great job. You see him on the Locked In podcast. Shout out to BioSteel, new sponsor. Appreciate the hat. And, obviously my man, Andre Rozier at Havoc Boxing, Uncle Dre. Love you. Love the gear all the time. And, we're going to catch you on Coach's Corner on the next episode.